Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here. I got another Master Duel video for you all. So today, I wanted to address a bit of a discussion piece that I have been thinking about for quite a while, because this is a question that I've seen posed for quite a while. Honestly, not just here in Master Duel, but even back when I played the TCG back in the day as well. And that question is, why doesn't Master Duel, or Yu-Gi-Oh as a whole, have a more casual format? So I wanted to have a discussion on the existence, or lack thereof, of alternative formats in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, and really just Yu-Gi-Oh! As a whole, as well as possible causes, sorry, and solutions to this issue. So, this is something that I see not only in my comments, but on the subreddit, and on the Discord, and just everywhere, Twitter, like Yu-Gi-Oh's talked about. It's like, I see people all the time saying, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Should have a casual format. Why is the only one so competitively driven? So before we talk about why Yu-Gi-Oh! Doesn't have a casual format, or really as much of one as a lot of people would like right now, we need to first talk about why the format is so competitively driven. And that's really because the format as a whole, there's only one. The only one format is advanced. There's technically traditional and the Pegasus League, I think that's what it's called. All the past formats as well, alternate rules, but when it comes to the format that's consistently supported, and I mean, it's the only one that's supported, that's going to be the advanced format. So that's, I think, why a lot of people want a lot of a more casual format, is because we only have the one right now. And I'm going to get more into that as we get more into some of these discussion points. So first off, we have to talk about what is casual Yu-Gi-Oh! Many players will state their desire for a more relaxed Master Duel experience in the form of an alternative format where the current meta decks are completely non-existent and they can play casually. That seems to be the overall very general sentiment of what people want, and I think that's a pretty broad stroke to paint people with, and at the same time it's an accurate one, but it's only accurate because it's a broad stroke, because we already run into the issue as we're trying to define what exactly casual play means. Does it involve lesser powered but still tuned decks utilizing underplayed archetypes? Or are we looking to recapture the idea of quote-unquote playground decks that we played as children? Playground era decks is a phrase I'll use sometimes. You might have seen it used here and there online. It basically just kind of refers to, like, literally what you would imagine a deck you would play on the playground. Like, one-ofs that are mostly like a starter deck with maybe a few booster packs with the cards thrown in there. So if you ever see me say playground decks, that's what I mean. The overlaying problem here, though, is that many people have many wildly varying definitions of what casual Yu-Gi-Oh! Means to them, and it can sometimes become difficult to come to a consensus as to what kind of format we want. This already presents an issue to Konami of not knowing what to give us, because we don't exactly know what we want of our format. And I think that really is the crux of the issue that we're going to get into here, is that when people say casual Yu-Gi-Oh!, they'll mean so many wildly different things. But it's not to say it's all the players' fault. Again, we'll get more into that here in a moment. So I think one of the most common sentiments that I see is that the player base wants a format without a meta. This is something I see a lot, particularly on the subreddit, r/Master Duel, where the general, I guess, atmosphere of the subreddit is a little bit more casual leaning than competitive leaning. They tend not to, there's not really any discussion about meta decks aside from meta bad, honestly. Like, you're not going to find anyone there really talking about the nuance of, like, a tier limit matchup or something like that. It really does seem to skew, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just want to throw that out there too. There's nothing wrong with that, but it does tend to skew to a more casual fan base, and that's why, honestly, why I like going there sometimes, is because I like to see what the more casual player base has in mind as far as, like, the current state of the game. And this is a comment I see a lot when people are talking about they want a different meta to play. People will say they want a format where there is no meta. This, however, is an impossibility. Given enough time, players will explore the card pool available to them and have enough experience playing with the card pool that they will inevitably find certain strategies that are more optimal than others. Even a meta with no effect monsters and nothing but simple spell and trap cards will still have a strongest monster, spell, and trap card, and there will always be players looking for the strongest cards. Changing the card pool will not change this fact. So that's, like, really the crux of it, right? Is that you can't have a format without a meta. It literally doesn't exist, because, like I said, players will always eventually find a meta within the format. I think some people have this idea that you can construct the ban list in such a way that literally every single archetype is equally viable, and the only thing stopping that from happening is Konami not getting their act together and making a coherent ban list. Is the idea, when in reality this mythical ban list that people want does not exist. There will just always be an optimal strategy. You can systematically ban the top decks one at a time as they pop up and keep playing whack-a-mole, but you're literally always going to have a best deck. If you look back, even predating the TCG's existence to the OCG, when literally all they had were vanilla monsters and stuff like reinforcements and castle walls, there was still a meta. There was still a best deck. There were still meta-defining cards when it comes to tournament play. So a format without a meta, it does not exist. So as far as coming to a consensus, this is something that we talked a little bit about earlier, about trying to figure out what exactly a casual format would look like in Master Duel. Many players believe that the greatest obstacle standing between us and a casual format is Konami themselves, and this is only partially true. The reality is that even if Konami were motivated enough to make an alternate format, we as a player base would be able to tell them what we would want due to having conflicting ideas about what that format should look like. And I think this is where kind of I'm not trying to assign fault, I guess, to either Konami or the player base, because it is kind of an equal parts problem, right? Like as I mentioned here, we as a player base don't really have a clear idea of what we want from a casual format. And I guess that in a way might motivate Konami less to want to give us one. But I kind of doubt that Konami is particularly motivated to begin with. But it's just kind of like a cause and effect kind of a thing. But it's also like a chicken egg kind of thing, because like who knows really what comes first, honestly. Interestingly enough, and this is something that I have a bit of experience playing in this game as well. This issue of trying to come to a consensus as to what casual versus competitive means doesn't just come up in Yu-Gi-Oh! This comes up quite often in Magic the Gathering's most popular format, Commander or EDH. And I wanted to point this out just because, again, I have obviously not as much experience in Commander as I do in Yu-Gi-Oh! I have far more experience in Yu-Gi-Oh! But when I started playing Commander, and I would go on the Commander subreddit, you see a lot of talk that is very similar to what you see in the Master Duel subreddit in a way, where people are trying to figure out, like, okay, we want a casual format. What does that mean? The format of Commander in Magic the Gathering has a card pool that spans most of the card game's history, much like Yu-Gi-Oh! And also, like Yu-Gi-Oh!, there is a wide variety in the power levels of decks that can be built. From competitive combo decks that win on turn 2 to casual decks that prefer the game to go as long as possible. Again, we see that disparity in Master Duel as well, especially if you play at like lower ranks, right? Where you'll have people who are playing these slower casual decks, but due to people, making new accounts to get a certain deck more easily, or people who haven't played the game in a while and are leveling back up for various reasons, you will see meta decks in those ranks as well. And gold. I think gold is the rank in particular I'm thinking of. So it's interesting that we have these both these games that are having the same kind of conflict in this regard. In an attempt to alleviate the huge power disparity between Commander decks, some Magic players have tried to implement a scoring system from 1 to 10 to gauge a deck's power level. However, this system honestly has many issues. Most of all, these power levels do not have an objective measuring system, and it's entirely subjective from player to player. One person could look at a deck and call it an 8, while another person could see it as a 4. This highlights the fact that Yu-Gi-Oh! Tends to have the same issue when trying to define the difference between casual and competitive decks. While one person might think of Blue Eyes as a more casual deck, another person might be inclined to think that it's competitive, especially if it uses stable cards like Maxi and Infinite Permanence. So, again, just further connecting the two, the parallels here, right? Again, this idea that when you have a format where there's such a huge card pool available, and it's also by far the most popular format, or in Yu-Gi-Oh's case, literally like the only supported format, it really creates these huge disparities that can exist between decks within the same meta. Using the example of Blue Eyes from Yu-Gi-Oh! Again, I personally, I couldn't even tell you the last time I faced a Blue Eyes deck, to be honest. It's not a deck that I see at a competitive level often at all. And when I think of a Blue Eyes deck, I'm still thinking of one that plays staples, right? But I still kind of think of that as a more casual deck. But again, I've seen, this isn't just me like saying there could be people like this. I've seen people make comments to the effect of like, if your deck plays stuff like Maxi, Ash Blossom, and Imperm, it's automatically a competitive deck. And I personally disagree with that. But again, it's not about who's right or wrong. It's just, again, highlighting this fact that like people have these very wild varying definitions. And to be honest, I'm really glad Yu-Gi-Oh hasn't tried to do the like 1 to 10 system, because I kind of glossed over it a little bit in my explanation, but like I can't stress how it doesn't work in Magic. Here's how it plays out in Magic, right? Everyone calls their deck a 7, whether it's like a C-ADH, which is competitive EDH. Well, I don't know. I feel like most competitive EDH players are pretty honest about their deck's power level, but people who feel like they're creeping up on that territory would call their deck a 7, and people who added a few cards to a pre-constructed deck might call it a 7. You know, it's just such a wild, huge varying difference. So let's talk about Playground Yu-Gi-Oh! A little bit more, and recreating Playground Yu-Gi-Oh! This is another fairly common desire among the players, is to have a casual format that aims to recreate the idea of Playground Yu-Gi-Oh!, which, as I explained earlier, is a deck made up of very few and or weak cards, akin to the selection a child may have available to them, right? We can actually look at Magic the Gathering again and draw another parallel, though this time, instead of highlighting a problem that the two games share, I want to highlight a solution that Magic the Gathering has in this regard. Some of Magic's other most popular formats are Draft and Sealed, which involve building a deck from a selection of unopened booster packs. For those who don't know, in Draft, players will open a pack, pick a card, and then pass the pack to either the left or the right, and then you repeat this process as needed until everyone has a constructed deck. So you're each picking out one card from a pack, passing it on. Sealed is pretty similar, except that players will open multiple packs at once, and you just build a deck from all of the cards you pulled instead of taking turns picking cards. So this can very much recreate that same power level of deck as Playground Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it's literally the same idea. You don't have this huge selection of every card that's ever existed except for what's on the ban list available to you. It's literally just what is in these booster packs, and I think that if you're going to try to recreate Playground Yu-Gi-Oh!, this is absolutely the way to do it. And I'm not, I hope I'm not, by my tone, insinuating that I'm like looking down on Playground Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I think that level of play is super fun. I love Draft in Magic. Draft is actually my favorite format in Magic. Commander is fun, but I definitely like Draft a lot more. And when it comes to Pokemon, not the card game, but the video game, there's a somewhat similar, I guess, general concept format that I like called Little Cup, where the idea is that you're battling with level 5 Pokemon, right? They're all very weak. I like the idea of turning down the power level and really duking it out all the same. I think it's a really cool concept. So believe it or not, Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually used to have its own line of Draft and Sealed products. This was years ago. I think they discontinued them in like 2014. I think they may have like maybe a 2-year run. There were 3 of them, I remember. They were called the Battle Pack, which were intended to be open and played in this more casual format, right? It's not a pack that you would open to try to... I think maybe occasionally they had decent reprints, but it's not a pack you were opening for value, right? It was a pack literally designed to use in, again, Draft and Sealed play. Another attempt Konami has made at introducing a more casual kind of playground level format to the TCG in particular was Speed Duel. That's a line of products that aims to offer more simple decks that have a nostalgic aspect due to being earlier from the game. I don't think I end up mentioning here, but I also want to talk about how the OCG also has Rush Duel, which is another format that has a more simplified rule set. That it's got some nostalgic references, but it does have a decent bit of new cards as well as like cards from actual Yu-Gi-Oh! Taken into Rush Duel. Rush Duel is very much its own thing, whereas Speed Duel is definitely still closer to what the TCG is. I could explain Rush Duel more, but it would honestly take its own video. Honestly, though, despite these efforts, I'm talking particularly about Battle Pack and Speed Duel here, despite these efforts, Konami has either just simply discontinued these products in the case of Battle Pack, or just continues to print them sparingly while offering no tournament support for the format. That's in the case of Speed Duel. Whether these happen due to lack of interest on the players or Konami's part is a bit unclear. This is what I was touching on earlier when I said that, it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing, right? Like, Konami was doing battle packs for a while, but then they stopped doing them. Was it due to them not selling well? That's what a lot of people think. I really liked battle packs again, but I could be in the minority of that. It could also be, and then we have the case of Speed Duel, right, where the products are still coming out, but it's not supported at all. Like, there's no Speed Duel tournaments unless maybe some locals have them, but it's not something that Konami seems particularly interested in supporting. So that seems a bit odd to me, that they would still produce a product for a format that, again, they don't really want to support. But in summation, the main reason we likely haven't seen an alternative and more casual format is due to the player base wanting a large variety of conflicting ideas about what the format should be like. It's not entirely fair, though, to blame the players, as historically Konami has also seemed relatively uninterested in expanding on possible formats beyond the one format that all tournaments are held under, that is advanced. Though I do generally agree that Konami should support more of a variety of ways to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Again, I myself am a huge fan of Battle Pack and Draft Steel play in general. It also remains to be seen soon when or even if that will ever come. So, yeah, remains to be soon. I just realized it's supposed to be remains to be seen. Remains to be seen when or even if that will ever come. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover on the topic. Again, I would love some more alternate formats, but I really just don't think we're going to see that from Konami anytime soon. I just personally don't have any faith in that. Which, is a bit sad when you have to, lack faith in it's mostly in Konami, honestly. Like, I do think, again, there is a bit of the player base kind of needs to come to a consensus of, what kind of a product we want as far as, like, an alternate format goes. But at the same time, we can be as vocal about it as we want. Is Konami ever going to listen? It's, again, chicken egg, who knows? But those are my thoughts. I would definitely love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below as well as to what kind of alternate formats you would like to see in Master Duel and maybe Yu-Gi-Oh! As a whole, and what you think Konami could do to potentially address the kind of one format issue we have right now. Or if you even think of it's an issue, if you like just having an advanced format, feel free to share that in the comments below as well. So I think that's going to go ahead and about do it for this video. Let's go ahead and move now to our outro. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me, not just personally, but it's also a great way of supporting the channel as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other means, you can of course feel free to comment and or subscribe right here on YouTube. I'm always looking to the comments section. You guys leave some pretty awesome feedback as far as like constructive criticism goes when it comes to deck building, gameplay, channel content, all that stuff. So feel free to leave your opinion down there. I will be sure to take a look at that there. And then subscribing is going to be the best way to get notifications of when these videos drop. That does happen every day, by the way, so if you're looking for daily Master Duel content, you've come to the right place. And there are more places where you can get some daily Master Duel content. If you check out the description below, follow the top link over to my Patreon page. There for just $5 a month, which is as much as you pay for a booster pack. You'll find a lot more value than a pack full of filler over there. We've got some previews for content upcoming here on the channel. We've got some exclusive games that are only posted over on Patreon over there. We've got some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured in this lovely credit sequence where I thank all of the people who are helping contribute over there on Patreon. It's a huge support to the channel, and it really means a lot as well. So thank you everyone who is donating that is featured here on screen. And again, it's not just a pure donation. You do get some more daily Master Duel content over there just for being a part of the Patreon. But I think that's about all the time that I have for today's video. Once again, I just want to thank you so very much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. Again, it just means a lot, as I do put a decent amount of work into getting these videos out every single day. But that's about all the time that I've got for now. So without further ado, this is XLex. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.